Yeah, Coach, I know you're mixing things up with the wide receivers, trying to see who goes out there first, who goes out there second stuff. How have things been?
Man, things been going well. We got roughly 8 to 9 guys been kind of rotating in there, and just each guy gets their own series, and we're trying to figure out who's being more consistent. Guys making the most plays, guys who can pick up the offense pretty well, and just be as consistent as possible. But it's good because now we have that competition, and you can see guys starting to try to get in there, steal some more reps, and jump in there. But guys have been great in regards to competing, but also being supportive of the next guy who's in there, But they've done a great job of getting mental reps when they're not in there as well, So they try to not make the same mistake that the guy that's in there in front of them has made. So it's been good so far, and just seeing those guys understand the sense of urgency now with us being less than a month away from the first game.
It looks like you got a lot of guys that can get open and catch it and stuff. Do you have a guy that could be a star, a guy that can make a difference, that could strike fear into the other team?
Man, you would like to say all 8 of those guys, with 8 to 9 guys, can strike fear. But when you think about it, I mean, you look across the board. You got Chris Marshall, who's a prototypical ex receiver, 6'3", roughly around 215, and you got AJ Jordan, who's still kind of learning, but getting there. He's 6'5", 230. And then you got Jamari Hawkins, who can run, who has elite speed. And then C.J. Brown, another guy that can run, and Ish, who's another guy that's smart and versatile guy. You can move around, and then not to mention we just added Jelani Watkins as well. So I mean, anytime you got a guy that's a sub 10, 100 in the room and in the mix, and I think we got a few guys, and Courtney Crutchfield is starting to show up, and Donnie Papel. So it's kind of hard to say right now, but I do think we have a few guys who could emerge and be that receiver one for us.
There you guys track everything. How are you doing with drops?
Uh, you're never satisfied as a coach. You go into a practice, you want to have as few drops as possible. We would love to go a day with zero drops. But we understand those happen. But we do have a catch chart. We have a catch chart, and we have a production chart that we tally every single day. I think the previous practice we might have had, I think, 8 drops. I think the one before that, I think we had 7. So you think about all the reps we get, and we chart routes on air. We chart every competition in practice. So if we can keep that number as minimum as low as possible, then that's our goal.
Right. And then CJ came in. He's starting to emerge in our eyes as kind of a team spokesman, leader type guy. What do you see from the leadership standpoint in your room?
I think when I first got here in January, he was more of a lead by example guy. But now he understands that he's kind of like the vet in the room. He's going into his 3rd year here. Obviously, a hometown kid, so he understands. Like, man, this is a very important year for us, and he's a guy that's been here, so he understands the pride that he has playing for the University of Arkansas. So, and with more confidence, he's starting to speak up more. He's starting to be more vocal. He's starting to bring the young guys along as well, and then you see it in his play as well. I think CJ's been pretty consistent throughout these first 5 practices for us.
Anybody else that kind of has a stronger voice in that room, you think?
Chris Marshall, and Chris is a guy that's kind of going to kind of sit back in the room and kind of sit back and watch. But he's a very smart player. He's done a great job of bringing along Crutch and bringing along AJ as well. But Chris is a guy that knows the offense, and he's a guy that we can move around. Same thing with CJ. Like those guys are smart football players, and you can tell that Chris has played a lot of ball. He come in, he'll ask great questions, and typically he'll have some good answers for some things as well. But it's been pleasantly surprising to see Chris be as smart as he is, and how he can articulate in coverages and see what the DB does and all that stuff.
How do you feel like Antonio Jordan's developed since the spring?
Oh my gosh, it's night and day, for sure. Just his knowledge of the offense. And one thing, testament to AJ, what he did every single day this summer. He came in and he met at noon with us. He came in, he ate lunch at like 11:30, came in at noon, and we met for like 45 minutes because he had study hall at 1 o'clock and he had weights at 2:30. So that's been huge for his development, his confidence and knowledge of the offense, and he's made huge strides from spring until now, and it showed. In the spring, he had several MAs because he was still kind of learning the offense and trying to process the information. But him coming in and meet with us every single day, one-on-one time, and it's been huge for AJ and his confidence.
Yeah, Coach Cramsey said he's really those 9 guys, the only one that's like a for sure you're the X. How's he done in that role? How's he done in one-on-ones?
He's done pretty well. The thing we got to continue to work on with AJ is his pad level. Obviously, he's 6'5", so when those DBs get under his pads, at times we got to work on some pad level things with him. But he's willing to work on that. We just finished working some stuff post practice today on that. But he's a guy. He has such a huge catch radius. You throw it up, man, he's gonna find a way to come down with it. The kid just has natural ball skills, and that's something that myself or Coach Cramsey and Coach Silver, we can't coach that size that he has. But the kid has a special skill set when it comes to those 80-20 balls that we refer to those as.
I think Trey's question about is there a guy that strikes fear is kind of the biggest question with your room, but phrasing it a different way, like how important is it to find a number one target, or are you comfortable if it's an even share of targets for 4 or 5 guys this year?
I mean, man, you would love to have one guy that you can kind of go to and in any kind of situation, that guy's going to be the guy to make the play for you. But it's also good to have depth in the room as well, And I've been a part of offenses where there's a huge drop-off from your top 3 guys, and I don't think we have that here. I think depth is not an issue in the room, but we would like to see, a few guys kind of separate themselves to solidify, being a receiver 1 and receiver 2, the guys that we can kind of depend on in crunch time.
How much does whoever wins the quarterback battle also kind of play into that with like whoever it is lining up under center, the better chemistry that he has with the wide receivers? Could that be a determining factor on maybe who is starting and getting the most reps for you guys?
It's kind of hard to say that. I mean, we're going to roll with who the best guy is. And all our guys have great relationships with the guys in the quarterback room. They've all spent all summer throwing routes on there with those guys, extra time, just trying to build a relationship with all the guys in the room. Because that's the first thing that I addressed in fall camp was, hey, guys, there's a big elephant in the room. We know what it is. It's the quarterback situation. We're going to roll with whoever it is. We're going to be supportive of whoever it is, no matter what. And we got to make every quarterback look good, no matter who it is under center.
And going back to just kind of like AJ's the only X, is that valuable for a receiver room to have such versatility and guys you can move all over the field? I mean, how does that make the room better, I guess?
Oh, man, it's huge because you end up breaking tendencies. If you got a guy that's playing one position and a defense can kind of, shadow him or bracket him, but now we can move guys around. And we have a smart enough room to those guys can play multiple positions. They can play all 3 positions, the X, the A, or the Z as well. So that's huge for us because now it allows us to do so many things offensively. We can say, Chris, hop in there and go in the slot, or CJ, go in there and go to X, or Ish, go outside to Z. So no matter what, I mean, we have that. We have the capability of doing that, and it makes our job a lot easier because we don't have to limit ourselves from an offensive standpoint, and Cramsey don't have to limit what he calls as well.
Arkansas hasn't had a positive turnover margin since 21. This is your 4th year with Coach Silverfield? Is that
Yes,
right?
sir. Going to fourth year.
And Memphis has always been good in the turnover department. Have you been around a staff before as a coach or a player that's emphasized like the OTB stuff or ball security as much?
I like the fact that you mentioned it, OTB. Yeah, but the fact that we do ball security every single day, and we understand that the turnover margin is probably the number one determining factor in wins and losses. So every single day we're going to do some kind of form of ball security, and we're going to yell it throughout practice. Our guys understand it because we understand, like, the ball is the program. Anytime you touch the ball, you have the whole program in your hands, and that's highly important. And we don't take that lightly, and we understand. Just not to mention last year, but the turnover margin was not that great, and there's several games that probably should have been won. Had the ball security been a little bit better, so we want to harp on that. Because we know that we are very close. We have the talent here. We have the coaching staff. We have the players. We do the little things right and focus on the details from owning the ball and focus on ball security. I think we got a chance to, hopefully put ourselves in some good situations.
Yeah. Several games that should have been won, including probably maybe Memphis.
Man, for sure. For sure.
5 practices in. You got 20 more practices to go before the first game. How's the energy level right now after, being out in the heat and all that kind of stuff compared to maybe where you guys started out?
I think today we started off pretty strong. I think we kind of hit a lull in the second half of practice towards the end. I think guys kind of start feeling sorry for themselves a little bit. But outside of that, the first four, man, been great. I mean, guys have been great in meetings. They've been taking great notes. They've been energized. They've been focused, you know. But I do think today we hit a little lull second half, particularly the receivers. I can't speak for everybody else, but particularly in our room, I think we kind of hit a lull in the second half of practice a little bit. But all in all, throughout the first five, I've been pleased with guys' energy. I've been pleased with guys' competitiveness, and I've been pleased with guys just coming there with the right mindset to come in there and attack and get better each and every day.
I ask you about a couple of specific guys. Fapel, what's his consistency level been like?
Donnie's a real solid, sure-handed guy for us. He's smart. He's another guy that we can move around. Very strong hands. Very strong hands. Donnie does a really good job making contested catches. You know, he's a steady Eddie. He's not gonna say too many words, you know, but he's gonna come in and he's gonna work. He's gonna take great notes in meetings. Mm-hmm. He's gonna ask great questions. Donnie is a true pro both on and off the field. He has that right approach. Okay, and then I want to ask you also about Hawkins. What's your take on him? All right, so me and Jamari's relationship is a little different, obviously. This will be our fourth year together, but just seeing him come in and being able to raise his level of play, to come in here and compete. I've been very pleased with him, and one thing I've been trying to harp on him about is being a little more vocal. And he's starting to get outside of his shell and speak up a little bit more, because he's a guy that understands the OTB and the importance of the culture that, you know, that Coach Silverfield and Coach Cramsey and everyone else around here preaches. But I've been pleased with Jamari and his growth and his development of getting outside his comfort zone. You know, you think about it, he was at Memphis for 4 years, at a place where he never really was, you know, put in like a leadership position. But him coming here, understanding this is his 5th year, he's a vet in our system, so he's very comfortable with everything that we do, and it's good to see him step up and be more vocal and speak up and get outside of his shell. And that's why I feel like he's grown, he's developed throughout his time here so far.
And then CeCe, your thoughts on him getting through spring, you know, after the injury last year?
Man, it's good to see him and good to see Ish out there. You know, he's another guy that's smart. He's more of a lead by example guy. He'll speak, you know, but he's a guy, more lead by example guy. He's tough as hell, very physical. He's gonna make those contested catches. He's smart. He's savvy. I love Ish because he has a big chip on his shoulder. You know, you think about it, the kid hadn't played in the game in almost 2 years. You know, so for him, like this whole offseason has been very personal for him to get back out there on the field, because he understands that, man, he wished he was out there last year, and he didn't want to go through that again. So just seeing his hunger, his determination, and his focus this offseason has been great. But I've been very pleased with Ish.
Back to Jamari, I think he led y'all last year in yards per catch maybe at Memphis, big play threat. How do you get, you know, just making sure that happens, you know, get that consistency with more catches and maybe some, you know, that amplifies the total yards? I mean, is that something he can work on, or just maybe a product of what the Memphis offense was last year?
I think it was a product, but also a testament to him and his hard work. You know, his role definitely increased last year for us, but he's a guy that stayed in the system. He was behind a couple guys, you know, but he was a guy that just stayed consistent. He worked his tail off. And you look at him now, you know, he's another guy that came in every single day. He got catches every single day. He meets with special teams every single day. You know, Jamar is a 4-phase special teams guy as well, you know. So the kid he's built different. He's wired different. He's very smart. He's tough. So it's been great seeing him just like overall develop. And with his vertical speed, man, it's a guy that we can use to threaten the field vertically, make some plays for us. A lot of his plays last year were some down the field stuff. And then we had some intermediate where he made some guys miss, and he got some yak and got upfield, you know. So just seeing him really start to come out of his shell and make them plays and see that confidence, you know, has been huge, because early on he lacked that confidence.
I just want to get some more of your thoughts on 2 newcomers. You mentioned Jelani. What is it about him that maybe makes that track to football transition something that could, you know, have an impact for y'all? And then Jude Hall, someone that wasn't here in the spring. What have you seen from him, first impressions?
All right, starting off with Jelani, he's a football player. I'll say that. You know, he's just not a straight line guy. Like, the kid has wiggle. He has really good change of direction. He has really good ball skills. You see why he was highly recruited coming out of high school, and the fact that the kid is coming off a track, didn't do anything football related, and came in here and he's held his own, which has been very impressive. He's learning the offense. He's texting us at night, asking questions. He's texting us, what can I do better? What some things I need to improve on? What do I have on this route? So it means something to the kid. But he's a hell of an athlete. For a kid to come in, not do anything football related, and then hop in this summer, the second half of summer, and just kind of hit the ground running. Been very pleased with him, but he's more fluid and he's more elusive than what you think. You think a track guy is a straight line speed, but this Jelani is an actual football player with really good ball skills. Jude, obviously Jude came in a little bit later, came in this summer. I think Jude is going to be really, really good. He's just underdeveloped right now. He needs to get in the weight room. He needs a year in the weight room to build some strength. But he has a huge catch radius. He's 6'5", sitting at roughly 200 pounds. So I do think Jude has a bright future. He just got to get in that weight room. Now had Jude been a mid-year enrollee, we'll be having a whole different conversation right now. But he's been here roughly 2 months. But once he gets in the weight room, he'll need a year of that. But he's gonna be really good for us.
You said that Courtney Crutchfield's starting to show up. Just what does that look like?
Oh man, it's pleasing to the eye because you remember that kid coming out of high school, highly recruited kid, all the talent in the world. But you see him maturing. I think we had the same conversation back in spring. Was we sat down and the thing with him is, can you take this serious? And I think Crutch has taken it more serious, and you see him starting to be more consistent and make more plays, having better knowledge of the offense. Because he's very explosive. He also changed his body. He was a little heavy last year, above 200 pounds. We got him down to roughly about 185, 186 right now. So he's way more elusive. He's way more shifty. He got natural ball skills, and he's very, very explosive for sure. So it's just good seeing him to kind of put his name in the mix as well. So, and like I mentioned earlier with Chris kind of taking him under his wing and kind of help him learn the offense and kind of hold him accountable and do things like that, because Crutch needs that. Crutch, he only understands hard coaching. That's how he responds to hard coaching and guys holding him accountable, and you see him improving for sure.